Scott, obviously you cover every team in the league from a national perspective, but you did spend some time specifically with the Dallas Stars in your career. So I want to just kick off with that Colorado-Dallas series. What's impressed you about how the Stars have come out in those first two games?
The Dallas Stars never want for drama or narratives around that team. Going back to I spent the 17-18 season there with Ken Hitchcock, and of course a coaching change early in this regular season, which seems like a million years ago, and Rick Bowness taking over there. Lots of issues about, with veteran players and who's going to step to the forefront there. I really thought that they would be in tough, frankly, against Calgary in their first round series. But I think what we saw there is that team really getting some veteran leadership from a guy, starting with Joe Pavelski. And I know when he signed with the team in the offseason, I remember talking to a scout. He said, listen, I don't care what Joe Pavelski does in the regular season. I don't care if he scores any goals at all. You got him to play in the playoffs. And even though the playoffs are, of course, coming weeks and weeks after they normally would, I think what you're seeing from Joe Pavelski is exactly why Jim Nill signed him. And is a guy who brings it in the playoffs. He's not afraid to play in the hard areas, so great in front of the net. And I think he's a real mentor to a young core of players that we've also seen step to the fore, Rope Hintz, Denis Gurianov. But to me, the story of the Dallas Stars right now is Miro Heiskanen. Maybe people don't get how good this young defenseman is. And in a series against Cale Makar early on, this is Miro Heiskanen's team, and right now it's Miro Heiskanen's series.
Scott, do you think that a player like Joe Pavelski could help? You talk about him mentoring the younger players, but also helping to mentor some of those young veteran players too, like Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin. I thought he's been very instrumental with helping them elevate their game because they had a pretty sluggish series in that Calgary series.
Yeah, absolutely, Anson. And I think, listen, the criticism of Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin has been has been part of the narrative in Dallas for 2 or 3 years now. And I think what Joe Pavelski's play does is that it takes some of the pressure off of those guys to perform every single night. And listen, no one wins a Stanley Cup unless they are 4 lines deep, 6D deep. You've got to have good goaltending depth, especially the way this schedule is set up. But I think Joe Pavelski gives some breathing room to Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn. And I think we've seen both those veteran Stars players really step it up early in this series against Colorado. Most people, I assumed, like a lot of people, that Colorado was going to have their way with Dallas, given their speed, given their offensive depth, given the whole lineup there. And we've seen just the opposite happen. This is a Dallas team that has a ton of backbone, and we are seeing Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn, I think, play as well as they played maybe in a long time. And I think Joe Pavelski is a big part of that.
Let's switch gears a little bit. Scott, what are you hearing in regards to the latest surrounding the Capitals coaching search?
Well, I don't know that there was all that much surprise when GM Brian McClellan decided that they would move on from Todd Reirden. 2 straight disappointing losses. I've known Todd a long time, and I don't think people should forget the kind of work he did defensively, first with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and then when he first came to Washington as part of Barry Trotz's staff. He helped redefine the defensive identity of that Washington Capitals team and was an instrumental part of their Stanley Cup win in 2018. Now, obviously when you lose in the first round twice, and when you lose to Barry Trotz in the manner in which the Capitals did, losing in 5 games, looked terrible doing it, I understand the desire to move on. And Brian McClellan was pretty frank about it. He wants somebody with experience. He wants someone, I think, to make players more accountable. And he has a a relatively short window now with Alex Ovechkin. He's entering his contract year. You've got Nicholas Backstrom, who was injured for part of that series against the Islanders, also getting a little bit older. John Carlson. The core is still there. This window is still open, but he needs a coach, I think, who can come in and command immediate respect and get immediate results. This is a team that's gone through some changes. Still don't know what the goaltending is going to look like next year with Braden Holtby approaching unrestricted free agency. And we hear lots of names around. I got to tell you, the guy I like that I think would be a nice fit there, Peter Laviolette. Coach, really top-end talent. He's had success. He's won a cup. He's been to finals. Mike Babcock's another guy, owed a lot of money by the Toronto Maple Leafs. Would the Leafs be happy to see him go to an Eastern Conference rival? My guess is that maybe Peter Laviolette, coming from the West, might be an easier fit in terms of separating from his former employers in Nashville.
Scott, how big of a factor do you think will this right here, my favorite subject, money, be in the coaching search for the Washington Capitals head coach? Because Barry Trotz walked away, and a big reason why was because they couldn't come to an agreement when it came to money.
Yeah, absolutely. And Anson, it's a great issue. And it's not just the Washington Capitals. I mean, a lot of teams are going to face their own internal budgets, never mind the flat salary cap when it comes to free agency. A lot of teams are going to have to look really hard at the bottom line for their own budgets. And that'll mean hockey ops, scouting staff, coaching staff, all those kinds of things. And you're right. The Capitals have historically had an internal budget. They don't pay the big bucks. They don't pay Joel Quenneville money. They don't pay Mike Babcock money. Now, the one thing, if you have coaches who are owed money by other teams, Mike Babcock, Peter Laviolette, Gerard Gallant, there is some flexibility in terms of how you strike a new deal if you wanted to bring one of those coaches in. So maybe there's a way to marry that, stay within the internal budget, but also get the kind of experience that some of these veteran, higher paid coaches certainly command and can expect to make. There might be a way for the Washington Capitals and other teams who are looking to fill head coaching spots, can sort of straddle that line. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.